One missile, 26 minutes, and one decision that could end the world. That's how Kathryn Bigelow's A House of Dynamite opens. No preamble, no warning, just a flash on a radar screen and the slow realization that this might be the end. It's Bigelow at her most fearless, dragging the audience into a countdown no one wants to witness. But here's the twist. While the film explodes with tension and authenticity, the people who actually study nuclear wars say it's both brilliant and deeply flawed. Some experts praise how precisely it captures the human chaos inside those classified rooms. Others argue it breaks every law of strategy, physics, and policy just to keep the suspense alive. And that's what makes it fascinating. Because tonight we're breaking down exactly what A House of Dynamite gets right and what it dangerously gets wrong about the day the unthinkable finally happens. By the end, you'll know what's real, what's pure Hollywood, and why this movie might be the most important warning of our time. It starts with silence, the kind that feels too normal to be safe. A sunny morning, routine chatter in the Situation Room, DEFCON 4, flashing calmly on screens, nothing unusual. And then it happens, a single blip, a missile launched from somewhere over the Pacific, streaking toward the American heartland. The countdown begins, 26 minutes to impact, phones ring, papers shuffle, aid after aid rushes in with updates no one can confirm. Within seconds, the calm hum of bureaucracy turns into pure chaos. Bigelow doesn't ease you into the fear. She detonates it in real time. But here's where the experts start raising eyebrows. Hollywood loves this bolt-from-the-blue scenario, a surprise nuclear strike with no warning, no politics, no build-up. It's cinematic, sure, but according to real nuclear scholars, it's also wildly unlikely. Harvard's Matthew Bunn says nuclear war almost never starts this way. It isn't a random missile from nowhere, it's escalation, a chain reaction of missteps, provocations, and fear. The real nightmare isn't a sudden attack. It's a slow-motion disaster born from misunderstanding. A border skirmish, a drone gone rogue, a leader misreading intent. That's how history stumbles into war. And that's what makes A House of Dynamite feel uncomfortably familiar. Because as Bunn talks about theory, the real world is writing its own version. Just months ago, India and Pakistan traded drone and missile attacks across their tense border, a reminder that the fuse doesn't have to be lit by Washington or Moscow. Meanwhile, tensions between the US and China hover near their highest point in decades. So while Bigelow's setup may exaggerate the speed of Armageddon, the anxiety it captures, that's very real. Because the world doesn't have to end with a single missile to feel like it's already on the edge. The moment that missile appears on radar, everything slows down, as if time itself is holding its breath. One warhead, one target, one impossible decision. It's a setup that feels perfectly built for the big screen, and perfectly wrong for reality, because as the experts point out, no nuclear power would risk everything on one lonely missile. In real strategy, that's not a strike. That's a suicide note. A true first strike wouldn't just aim to terrify. It would aim to erase the other side's ability to fight back. Multiple warheads would rain down simultaneously, overwhelming defenses, communications, and leadership, turning coordination itself into rubble. Here's how the logic works. There are two types of nuclear attacks. Counter-value strikes target cities, pure punishment meant to destroy civilian life. Counterforce strikes, on the other hand, go after weapons, bases, and command centers, meant to cripple response. And if a country ever went through with the unthinkable, experts say it would almost certainly start with counterforce, not random devastation. That's why a single rogue missile doesn't make sense. It's too small to destroy America, too obvious to be ignored, and too reckless to achieve anything strategic. It's like lighting a match in a hurricane and hoping the world burns. But Bigelow's not writing a military manual. She's writing fear. That's her brilliance. She knows one missile is enough to pull every thread of human panic out of the people watching that radar screen. Still, the question lingers. Even if that impossible launch did happen, even if one missile really came screaming out of the Pacific sky, Could America stop it? That's where the film's next gamble begins. The screen flashes red. Somewhere deep in Alaska, the order is given. 2 interceptor missiles roar upward from Fort Greely, carving white trails through the night sky. Humanity's last attempt to swat Armageddon out of the air. Soldiers hold their breath. One missile fails on launch. The other streaks toward its target and misses. It's a brutal scene and uncomfortably plausible. Expert Jeffrey Lewis, who studies missile defense, admits it could happen exactly that way. Each interceptor only has slightly better than 50-50 odds of hitting its target. But what the movie doesn't mention is the real-world rule. You don't fire 2, you fire 4. That's the protocol. 4 shots at the same threat. Because when the world is ending, redundancy isn't wasteful, it's survival. And even then, it's a gamble. The U.S. missile defense system was never built to stop a full-scale nuclear attack. It can handle 1 or 2 limited missiles. Maybe. But start adding decoys, multiple warheads, or new hypersonic glide vehicles, and those odds collapse. A single interceptor can't tell which incoming object is real until it's far too late. That's the nightmare the film brushes against but never says aloud. America's defenses are built more on hope than certainty. They protect against luck, not strategy. Even Donald Trump's proposed Golden Dome, an expanded nationwide shield against nuclear missiles, wouldn't solve it. Experts warn it would cost trillions and still be overwhelmed by a serious adversary. You can't build a wall tall enough to block the sky. So when Bigelow's characters whisper that their odds are 50-50, they're not being dramatic. They're being honest. Because when it comes to stopping Armageddon, 50-50 odds aren't comfort. They're a coin toss. The heart of A House of Dynamite isn't the missile. It's the call. A flickering grid of faces, each one framed by fluorescent light and fear. Military officers, cabinet members, the president himself, played with tense stillness by Idris Elba. A nation's fate compressed into a single video conference. And here's the surprising part. That part's real. Nuclear historian Stephen Schwartz says the scene could have been pulled straight from the playbook. When a potential attack is detected, the National Military Command Center, or NMCC, launches what's called a Threat Assessment Conference Call. It starts with mid-level duty officers confirming the threat. If it's validated, that call escalates into a missile attack conference call. That's when the top brass, the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, and yes, the President, all join in. Every voice matters, but only one voice decides, and Bigelow nails that eerie stillness. The awkward silence when generals stop talking and wait for one human being to decide the fate of millions. Rose Gottemuller, who once served as NATO's Deputy Secretary General, said the film's accuracy gave her chills. The Situation Room? Pitch perfect. The underground command site at U.S. Strategic Command in Omaha? Scarily authentic. Even the lighting felt real, sterile, flat, designed for clarity, not comfort. Then there's the football. The leather briefcase always carried near the president, containing the pre-approved retaliation plans. In the movie, it's there in the corner of the frame, its weight practically visible. Schwartz confirmed the details. The real case looks exactly like that, and inside it, a small handbook outlines what options the commander-in-chief can order with a single phrase. It travels everywhere, from Air Force One to hotel suites to motorcades, because nuclear decisions don't wait for convenience. But the movie also captures something policy documents never could: the humanity leaking through protocol. Aaron Dumbacher, an expert at the Council on Foreign Relations, said that the moment characters pull out cell phones, breaking rules just to text their families, might be the most realistic scene of all. Because beneath the ranks and briefings, there's still people staring into a countdown clock that could erase everything they love. It's haunting. It's human. And it's one of the few places A House of Dynamite doesn't dramatize. It simply reveals. But there's one decision Bigelow never lets her president make. The one experts say matters most. As the clock ticks down, Idris Elba's president sits frozen in that digital war room, the missile still slicing toward Chicago. The world's greatest military staring at a screen it can't stop. An aide whispers the question everyone's afraid to say aloud. Sir, do we strike back? In the film, that question becomes a moral cliffhanger. His national security advisor calls for what he chillingly labels the well-done option, a massive counterstrike, one that would level half the planet before the first detonation even hits American soil. But nuclear experts say that moment, as gripping as it is, reveals the movie's biggest flaw. Because in the real world, the president's job wouldn't be to fire back instantly, it would be to wait. Jeffrey Lewis explains that America's nuclear strategy isn't built on hair-trigger reflexes anymore. It's built on resilience. Yes, the United States has the ability to launch on warning, to retaliate the instant radar detects an incoming missile. But the doctrine actually leans on something else, the second strike capability. That's the power to absorb a nuclear blow and still respond with overwhelming force afterward. It's the difference between panic and proof. The goal isn't to strike first, it's to make sure no one survives striking you. That grim calculus is what keeps deterrence stable. And here's the kicker. In a real scenario like this, they might not even know who fired the weapon. The radar could be spoofed. The signal could be a cyber attack. The missile might not exist at all. That's why experts like Lewis believe a real president would wait, to confirm, to verify, to be absolutely certain before unleashing the end of civilization. History proves why. In 1983, Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov faced almost the same situation. Alarms blaring, computers screaming that 5 American missiles were inbound. He was told to authorize retaliation. He didn't. He hesitated. Turned out the attack was a false alarm caused by sunlight reflecting off clouds. His refusal to react, that single act of human judgment, may have saved the world. That's the paradox Bigelow skips for the sake of drama. In real life, hesitation can save humanity. But on film, hesitation kills momentum. Section 6. Why the film still matters. For all its creative liberties, A House of Dynamite hits one target perfectly. The one most of us have forgotten even exists. It forces the world to think about nuclear war again, because the truth is, we stopped talking about it. The Cold War ended, and so did our fear. The bomb became history, something confined to textbooks and old movies. But as experts remind us, the danger never disappeared. It just went quiet. And Bigelow's film, with all its flaws, rips that silence wide open. Daryl Kimball from the Arms Control Association says the film isn't just a thriller, it's a warning shot. It makes audiences ask the one question policymakers avoid. What must change to keep this fiction from becoming fact? And the timing couldn't be more chilling. The New START Treaty, the last surviving nuclear arms agreement between the US and Russia, is set to expire soon. China is rapidly expanding its arsenal. North Korea continues its tests. Every superpower is modernizing weapons that can erase cities before anyone has time to blink. So when A House of Dynamite shows leaders scrambling, systems failing, and humanity on the edge, it's not exaggerating, it's foreshadowing. Fiction and reality are closer now than they've been in decades, and maybe that's the point. Maybe Bigelow's not trying to predict the future. She's trying to warn us that we're already writing it. Because nuclear war doesn't start with missiles. It starts with indifference. If A House of Dynamite feels like a movie, it's only because we haven't lived the sequel yet. Conclusion, outro in the end, A House of Dynamite might twist the facts, but it never misses the feeling. The protocols, the physics, the probabilities. Sure, they bend under the weight of storytelling. But the dread? The silence in the Situation Room? The human panic behind the polished titles? That part is painfully real. Because Bigelow doesn't just make us watch a nuclear nightmare. She makes us feel how easily one could begin. And maybe that's her true warning. Not about bombs, not about missiles, but about complacency. About how quiet the world has gone while the threat still hums beneath it. So here's the question her film leaves hanging. Can a movie, a story, still shake us enough to change anything? Can art still shift the conversation on something this big, this invisible, this deadly? Tell me what you think. Could a film like this actually move the world to care again? Drop your thoughts below, because the scariest thing about a movie like this is how close it already feels.